This is my second year being a judge for SPFBO. It is a competition for indie self-pub books. There are 300 books that get submitted into this competition, and there are phase 1 and phase 2s that break it down. But at the end of the day, the rules for your submissions as a book are that it has to be a novel length, it has to be self-published, and it has to be fantasy. After it's been submitted, these 300 books are randomly allocated to a judging group. There are 10 of us. We have to read our 30 books and dwindle them down to one book that we are going to call a finalist. We all do it a little bit differently, but we have to have that finalist by the end of phase 1. Phase 1 is coming to a wrap, and I'm here to tell you my finalist. The way I did it is I had 6 bloggers underneath of me who all read 10 books. This way each book had 2 chances in my group to become a semifinalist. If it didn't work for someone, it might work for the other one. And each of them had the ability to then pick a semifinalist for me, but they didn't have to, and spoiler alert, not all of them did. So in this video, I have 5 semifinalists to read, review for you, and at the end of this video, I'm gonna pick my finalist that moves on to phase 2. Then eventually you'll see phase 2 videos from me in December, where I'm reading and reviewing all 10 of the finalists, 9 because I've already read mine, and there is a leaderboard for this. At the end of the day, one book wins SPFBO, but also when you think about the 10 finalists, they came from a pool of 300. They are literally 10th place out of 300. That's a pretty good score, and you should probably check out all of them. Without further ado, now that you understand what this video is about, let's get into my reviewing. I've started Sharpened Skin. That's wrong. Lizard Skin and Sharpened Steel. I always get this title wrong, so I hope I was correct. Something in my brain wants to change the words all the time, and I don't have a physical book to be looking at currently. I'm 25% in. If I'm being honest, when I originally saw this cover, I was like, that's not a book for me. This cover is doing this book a disservice in my opinion. And I don't really know what it is in the cover because I do think the drawing of the dinosaur is really cool. However, I think it's the typography mixed with the drawing. I think there's just a lot happening. All the elements separately are stunning in my opinion. However, I just think they don't mesh as well together. So I maybe think it's the typography for me that I just don't like. I guess to say I am pleasantly surprised and shocked because I'm having such a good time with this one. It's giving Jurassic Park 2 vibes. And if you've watched the Jurassic Park franchise, 1 is obviously the best just because it's a classic, and then Jurassic Park 3 is underrated in my opinion. Jurassic Park 2 is just meh, and also in my opinion Jurassic World 2 as well is just meh. So I think it's just the concept of what they go for because they do mirror each other. That's a tangent, I digress. But it's giving me Jurassic Park 2 vibes, and I am a Jurassic Park loving stan, so I'm having a great time. My only complaint so far is that I'm not quite sure this is a fantasy, but the line between fantasy and sci-fi is so blurry, it's so muddy, it's hard to have a hard line. But dinosaurs are clearly sci-fi in my opinion because obviously they've existed, so science brings them back. But in this world, I guess the dinosaurs just have always been there, but I feel like it gives me alternate history style sci-fi. I think Deb said it just is a fantastical world, so that's what made her feel like it was fantasy enough, which I think is fair. But for me at this moment in time, there's nothing to me in this book that has shown me that this isn't just an alternate Earth, which leads me to sci-fi. But again, the lines are so blurry that what can I put a hard line on this? I don't know. So I'm just unsure, but right now I'm just enjoying my time with it. I feel like I really care about some of the characters already. I'm intrigued by what's gonna happen to them. Essentially, we're following our characters. We have Boy and Sir who grew up on this island. Well, Boy grew up on this island, Sir somehow stumbled on it, and this is where the dinosaurs live. And so they kind of are one with the wild, and a team of mercenaries essentially, or soldiers, hire them because they want to steal the King Claw's eggs. I'm assuming King Claws in my head are T-Rexes, so that they can use them in the army to win the battle. And they hire Sir and Boy to navigate them through the wilds because there's some dangerous dinosaurs. Honestly, I'm invested. I'm so invested. We just saw a dinosaur battle for the first time and I was like, oh my god, this is so good. I'm picking up on what dinosaur is what in real life, the spitters. I know exactly what those are. If you watch Jurassic Park, you also know exactly what those are. I don't know, I just I'm feeling Jurassic Park nostalgia while I read these, and I love Jurassic Park. But overall, like, the writing style in this is really, really good in my opinion, and the story has like a really good like pacing to it. I am 50% into Lizard Skin and Sharpened Steel. I don't honestly have a lot of thoughts. I'm really enjoying this book, and so I think my thoughts are still kind of the same. Like, the things I'm struggling with is the fact that this is clearly just dinosaurs. Slashers are raptors. Spitters are the spitting things from Jurassic Park that I don't know the name of. It's clear to me that although they don't have the traditional dinosaur names, that's what they are, and I'm struggling to see this as a fantasy book because nothing about it feels not of this world. Like, even the setting itself, like, there's nothing that has not told me that this is not Earth, and so like I'm struggling with that aspect of it in terms of for like a fantasy competition. But other than that, I'm really enjoying this, and so like where's the balance on that? Where does my personal view on what is a fantasy book matter in something like this? That's like my own personal issues currently that I'm having. And then my only other complaint is that it does feel like a little repetitive, and a lot of the scenes I'm like predicting because they're scenes I've seen in dinosaur movies. They're scenes right out of Jurassic Park. They're things that we would expect animals like this to do that have like brains and humans, and like we play with the idea, especially in like the raptors in Jurassic World and stuff, of like raptors being smart and adapting, and we're doing that in this book as well. And I think I'm just like kind of losing some originality to this because it's just very repetitive, and I feel like I've seen all of this done before in the Jurassic franchise. I am enjoying this. Like, I just don't know what to say because I feel like it sounds like I'm really complaining, but like I'm turning the pages. I'm invested into the story. I want to see what happens. I like the characters. I wish we had a little bit more dimension in some of the characters. I have two that really stick out to me, and then the other ones are kind of just like meh. But the plot, the story, the action, like, it's keeping me engaged, and I'm really enjoying it. That's my update. We're going for sushi tonight for my sister's birthday, and I'm really excited for that. I haven't had sushi in a really long time, and I love sushi. We'll get some beef tataki, some edamame, some salmon sashimi, and then a bunch of different rolls, and my mom will get some sort of bento box because she does not eat rice, so she'll just get like chicken teriyaki, hold the rice, and some gyozas and things like that. I know, she's weird. Who doesn't like rice? I will update you again when I'm done this book. I just can't see myself having more thoughts past this point that I haven't already had, and I'm really excited because I am enjoying this, and I feel like that's a good book to start with. Like, it's nice to start with a book that I'm really, really enjoying, and this is such a pleasant surprise for me. I have finished my first book. I finished Lizard Skin and Sharpened Steel. I needed to read the title off. I don't know why it messes with my brain so much. Overall, I did really enjoy this. I had a fun time reading, and I kept picturing scenes in my head. I have a few complaints. I have a few things I really liked about it, and I figured we'll just get right into my overall rating, because overall I think it was a pretty good vibe, and it sets out to do exactly what it sets out to do, which I think makes it a strong contender for a finalist. I did find the characters a little bit lacking by the end of this story. I felt like at the beginning I was really intrigued by them, but by the end I really wanted to know more about the backstories of the two POVs that we get that are mainly the soldiers. I really loved Boy's POV. Boy is one of the locals that they hire. She's actually a girl, but her name is Boy, and I loved being inside her head. I think we got very good moments with her. We got those soft moments in some of the action where she like seemed to care about something. We really learned her personality in this, and I really enjoyed being with Boy. Anytime I got a Boy POV, I was like, yes, I'm gonna turn the page. The other two, I think, by the middle kind of suffered for me because I wanted more about who they are as people. I wanted to root for them a little bit more, and the only character by the end of this that I wanted to survive was Boy. I was really rooting for Boy, and I just wanted to be attached more to these two others. I was fine with not being attached to anyone else, but give me attachment to the main POVs. I think we needed more small moments with them, moments where we see them be kind and caring or something like that. There are a few that stick out to my brain, but like not enough. I think it just missed the mark in making me like really root for the characters. It was very, very action-packed. But Boy itself, like Boy as a character, if this had all been from Boy's POV, I would have really loved it. I just think although their motives for doing this was really good, I wish their background was a little more fleshed out. I wish them as an individual person outside of this army, outside of this situation, I got more about that. Plot-wise, I do think it was paced out really well. We did have a lot of action to the point where I found it repetitive. And so it's hard because although it's well paced out, it wasn't really exactly what I wanted because I needed a little bit of difference at times. It was just very much formulaic by the end of the book for me. But overall, it is well paced. I do think that there's a lot of things left unanswered
answered in this that I really wanted answers for. I'm definitely an answer reader. If I don't get answers in things, it can really ruin a story for me. It didn't ruin the story, but I will say I was left unsatisfied by the ending wrap up of this because it doesn't seem like there's a sequel. Like, nothing in this book says there's going to be a sequel, but there's so many unanswered questions and I'm like, there has to be a sequel. I think at times when I don't get answers, things become plot conveniences for me and they start to really bother me. And there's one scene in particular in this that like really sticks out in my mind of being like, okay, why did that happen? I need answers. And the characters ask why it happened and that they need answers, and then to not get answers by the end of the book just like really irritated me. But if you're not an answer heavy person, I don't think that'll bother you, and I think you'll just really enjoy. This is an action-packed life survival story, and I think it does that really, really well. Next up we have writing, and honestly I have zero complaints about the writing. I thought it was really strong, really well done, really, really technically strong for me. I really enjoyed the writing of this one, and I would read more if there was another series, like another book in this world. I would definitely read that, but I would read more from this author as well. Like, I just think it was very, very technically well done. World building. It's so hard because I did really enjoy this, but I did have like big complaints about this story as well. I think the world building is well fleshed out. It's well rounded in terms of like the dinosaurs and stuff like that, but I've said it in every clip that it just did not feel fantasy enough for me. So when you see my overall rating, I will be docking 1 point in the setting and world building category because it just didn't feel fantasy for me. People say, well, it's in a fantasy world, but there was nothing that screamed different about this world than Earth besides that it was like a different timeline. I think I could see it more as like an alternate history sci-fi, an alternate timeline sci-fi. Like, the world itself had nothing to be different than Earth. There was like, I needed like the sun never set, or there was always darkness, or there was 2 suns, something to like really make me feel like we weren't on Earth as we know it, or like some fantasy element. Or I could have also been with like the dinosaurs being very unique and being very different and being like not traditional dinosaurs, but it was clear to me that these dinosaurs were the dinosaurs that I like already know and love. So like that was my issue. Like, I just couldn't see anything that didn't make this a sci-fi to me. There was nothing that like stuck out as fantasy to me, because like you can change everyone's names, but this still felt like Earth to me, just maybe an alternate time in Earth. So it did get 1 point docked from me in setting. I only docked 1 point because it's murky. I think anyone's idea of what fantasy and sci-fi is very, very murky, and the author did put this in the competition saying that it's fantasy. So who am I to say that it's not fantasy, but I did want to acknowledge that in some way, that like to me, I would call this a sci-fi. But other than that, like the actual world building itself, like seeing the dinosaurs, knowing the dinosaurs, the land around, like the dangerous things, I could see like the water going through the forest. I could see the different territories of the animals. I could see exactly what a dinosaur looked like. I do think that was all really, really well fleshed out. I do wish we got a little bit more of the outer scope of the world, and maybe that would help me feel like it wasn't Earth, but also I feel like that wasn't the point of this novel. And then we have enjoyment, and I overall did enjoy this book. It's not a new favorite of mine, but it'd be something that I'm willing to continue on. I really did enjoy the story that I got, but it wasn't like a new obsession for me. So with that being said, I'll give you my actual like number ratings for everything. Characters got a 7, plot got a 7, writing got a 9.5 for me. It just didn't feel like a perfect 10, but I really had no complaints. Setting got an 8 with it docked. Like, it would have been a 9, but I docked 1 point. And my enjoyment was a 7, which puts us at a 7.58, which for SPFBO is a 7.5. I honestly would be very happy pushing this book through. I enjoyed it. I think other people will really enjoy it. I would be tempted to put this up for a senlin book, I'm not gonna lie, if something else gets a better rating, because I did overall just like really have a good time with this story. So that leaves me excited to see where we go from here, because there's other books that I'm excited about. I hope that we only go up, not because I didn't like this book, just because what a great reading week for me if my books just keep getting better, because I did really, really enjoy this one. I have no idea what I'm reading next though, so I will update you in a little bit. Okay, my goal for today is to finish the last Lunar Witch. I'm actually 50% in already. I meant to update you guys sooner, but I kind of flew through this first half, which I was not expecting. This was Kitty's pick, and I was terrified of it because paranormal, witchy coziness, not my usual vibe, but I'm pleasantly surprised surprised by how much I'm enjoying this one. We follow our main character who is a witch. And in this world, witches are very like reclusive. They live in their own cities and they don't like to mingle with a lot of other magical creatures. But our main character has chaotic magic. She cannot control her magic. And she knows if the Inquisitors find out, she will be stripped of her magic. And she doesn't want that to happen. So she ends up leaving the city of the witches and going to like a metropolis that has a bunch of magical creatures to start her own alchemy business. So the reason she doesn't want her magic to be stripped is because she loves to do alchemy, and you do need magic to do alchemy, but just a small amount. So she's not worried about her magic losing control when doing alchemy, but when other things happen, she could lose control. And so she goes to this metropolis to start up her own alchemy business and prove to her parents that she can do it, or else they're gonna make her come back home and strip her of her magic. At this metropolis, she ends up making some friends and getting herself involved with the problems of the metropolis, which is there are demons ripping apart through the veil, and there is a warlock essentially trying to destroy the world, and she ends up trying to help her friends solve this. There are a lot of like cool magical creatures in this. We've met a few, like there's like the fairies, and I like the like world building behind the fairies. They would let you wander their parks during the day, but at night you have to give them a gift or else you don't want to know what's gonna happen to you. I liked that we had angel-born creatures. I liked that we have these humans. They're the enforcers, but we have these humans that have been changed with magic, and they don't really fit in anywhere because they're not fully magical and they're not fully human. So they've got like prejudice against them both ways. And we see a lot of these magical creatures because she's actually working at a divine coffee shop. And I think it's fun just to see like all the magical creatures coming in through there. Like I'm really liking the world building. I'm really rooting for the characters. I do think that they run a little bit together and I'm struggling a little bit with that. However, I'm really caring about them and I'm rooting for them and I'm really intrigued with where this story is going. And I'm literally shooketh about that. But I'm really excited to finish, so hopefully I will do that today before I have to go for dinner. I just finished The Last Lunar Witch and really enjoyed this one a lot. I'm kind of shocked because I would describe this book as cozy and I don't think cozy normally works for me. However, I would say it's not cozy fantasy, but it has cozy atmosphere. And those are two different things because cozy fantasy typically has low stakes. This one had stakes to it. The atmosphere was just cozy. I mean, we run a coffee shop. We have ovens that are sentient and they're baking on their own, like, and they kind of have a mind of their own. Their house has a mind of its own. And we have all these different magical races coming into this divine coffee shop and things like that that made this feel so cozy. But then we had the stakes of this witch who, if her magic gets out, she's gonna destroy all of her friends, but then she also finds out that she's gonna be used by these warlocks to destroy essentially the entire world and give witches a bad rap, and she doesn't want that, and like the stakes there I really, really enjoyed. The characters, they did run together at times, but honestly I found myself really, really rooting for them, and I'm not an epilogue girly in something like this where it's just like wrapping up and we get like a cute little moment, but the moment in the epilogue was so adorable and I was like aw and like rooting for them. The ending, I was like really rooting for a lot of scenes. I really, really liked these characters, even though they ran together, but they definitely could have had stronger voices and tones in my opinion, but I cared about them, especially the little fox. Plot, I really enjoyed the plot. I don't really have complaints about the plot. Maybe at times there was conveniences and things like that, like I definitely could see those happening, and I don't really love when a character knows more and then they just don't tell us and it's just like there so that the plot can still happen naturally, but then don't tell me that this character knows more. A small little complaint for me, but I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the story. I was always intrigued, always wanting to keep the pages turning. The pacing was a little bit off. I think this could have been a little bit shorter, but overall I still enjoyed it. I just think the last half happened a lot faster than the first half. That could have been a little bit more balanced, but I enjoyed it. Writing, I think it's just the voices of characters needed to feel a little bit more separate to me, but other than that I don't really have complaints, but it's not like my favorite type of writing to ever exist, but I don't really have a complaint why. Like sometimes it's hard to like put a finger on exactly what I want to nitpick in something, and it was just, I think that the writing could have been stronger, but it was still quite strong. Reviewing books is hard, okay? Trying to like give thoughtful, deep reviews on every little section of a book too is really hard because sometimes you just didn't hit with something but you can't explain why, but I did hit with the writing style mostly, so that's all right. World building, this was so unique for me. Like this was so expansive. This was really cool. I really enjoyed all the different magical creatures and learning about them, and the city rules, like I liked that we had different like patrols of the city and like government and things like that, and learning like which magical creatures mattered more than other magical creatures, quotation marks, but just like had higher parts in society than others. Like witches are definitely very like well esteemed esteemed in this society, whereas the like humans that had magic were not the healers, and there's different types of jobs and things like that. I did really think that this was really like expansive in that terms. Could have probably dived a little bit deeper into exactly how the magic works and stuff. It doesn't really do that. This is very just like magic is innate within you and you're a magical creature. And I'm typically more of like a explanation given fantasy magic system. Like I like a hard magic system, but I enjoyed this and I felt like it was well enough explained that I never was questioning things. Enjoyment wise, as I said, I really enjoyed this one like a lot. I am thinking about reading the sequel. It is a series. I'm gonna guess a series of standalones. Like the plot is wrapped up from this story, but we just get to follow her and her friends on like a new adventure within the second book. I'm thinking about doing it. Like if I'm wanting just like a fun time, really easy, cozier read, I think I would pick it up. I am intrigued enough, like I liked the vibe enough to be like, I might continue. So I think that says a lot about my enjoyment. Official numbering. Characters got an 8. Plot got an 8. Writing got a 7.5 from me. Setting got a 9. And my enjoyment got an 8, which puts us at an 8.08, which is an 8 for SPFBO. And for my actual like rating on it, it is a 4-star. I really enjoyed this one. I am excited to see if more people pick this up, how they feel about it, because I feel like it's a very specific type of audience book. It worked for me, so I hope it works for more of you. It's just like a cozy, funny, good time, sweet little book with like some plot and some stakes and some witches. Perfect for fall time.
Good morning. I started A Rose Among Thorns last night and I actually have made really good progress into it. This is a one-time sitting book in my opinion. It is so easy, bingeable to read in one sitting. I am 65% done it and I think I will be done it within like the next hour. I told my reviewers both years that I want the best book. I don't want the book they think I would like best. And I feel like that really showcased this year. And the reason I've always said this is because if the book is amazing, I probably will like it. Like I'm a wild card reader and I'm just about the story. And if there's a good story, I could really like it, even if it's something that like I inherently don't like. So I'm always willing to try things. And I'm really glad this year that that's what I said. I feel like every book this year has been something not up my regular alley. It's been something that I probably wouldn't try without this. And I've enjoyed all of them very, very thoroughly. I'm really liking this one. Essentially in it, we're following our main character who gets a call from her great aunt saying, I need to go see a friend. Can you come down and watch my shop for me because I can't just like close it down for 2 weeks. Our main character has not a green thumb at all and the shop is a nursery. So she begrudgingly says yes and she shows up. Turns out the nursery is also a magical greenery and it was set for an inspection. When the person who does the inspection comes, they're like, who are you? What are you doing here? Get out. You are not verified. You do not have the credentials to be working with these magical plants. I'm gonna take over. But our main character is like, no. Great aunt, I forget her name, asked me for help. I'm gonna stay. And they end up at a standstill. And so they both end up staying together to figure everything out. Turns out that her great aunt is gone for different reasons. And there's like this intrigue and this mystery about like why her great aunt left, where her great aunt went to, what's going on. And there's like criminals and stuff. And there's like a lot of mystery in this book. I love a good mystery. That's why I think last year for SPFBO, the murder mystery that won worked so well for me is I get really intrigued trying to like figure out exactly what's happening, putting the pieces together, but also just like vibing during a murder mystery. I don't know why. This one's not a murder mystery. It's just a mystery, but like same to me at times. And I am just really having a good time. This is really well written in my opinion. The writing feels very strong. Loving the characters. There's also some really cool world building going on with the magical plants and the Fae realm and the human realm and how they like overlap from each other at times. Like the greenhouse, it exists in both realms so that it can be magical, but it has the growth ability of an earth plant. Like there's some really cool world building happening. It is like light world building, of course, like they're just Fae, they're just magical, but I don't think it has needed to be more defined than that, and I'm really enjoying what we are getting. We're learning about family history in the Fae realms, things like that. I'm really loving the characters. The plot is getting to me. The writing's good. I have no complaints. I actually just want to keep reading, so I'll see you guys probably in like an hour when I finish this. I finished A Rose Among Thorns.
and I'm having a great time with all my reads. This one was just fun. It's quirky. I think, okay, Brie in her video, because this was her finalist, said that she thinks the audience for this was Small Miracles. I do agree, but hear me out. It feels like Small Miracles and Murder at Spindle Manor, both SPFBO winners, had a baby. It's got the quirky, fun banter of Small Miracles, but the cozy mystery intrigue of Murder at Spindle Manor. And it's all in one. It's definitely a little bit more like contemporary than I think either of those felt like to me, but I feel like that's a really good like comp comparison, is that they had a baby together, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one, which is shocking for me. But both of those were also shocking reads for me that I was not expecting to love as much as I did, and I really enjoyed. I feel like I already said what I liked about this one because nothing changed for me. I was always having a good time and just continued the entire time. I feel like you'll know quite early on if this is a story that will work for you or not. I mean, it's short, it's only like 200 pages. It's quick, it's bingeable, it's fun. It's got no romance in this one, but I feel like there are hints of romance, and there are 4 books. I did look, I might continue. I liked how the magic was explained. I liked that we got to see a decent amount about the magical world, even though it was on our world. Like, we didn't get to like visit or like see anything, but like we learned a lot about them. I think we learned enough. Like, maybe we could have learned more, but like we learned enough. I think the plot was well paced. The ending, I could have used this book to be a little bit longer, but I love a chunky boy books, so like short books I am almost always asking for to be longer. But I just like honestly had a really good time with this one. I need people to pick it up. For official ratings, I gave characters an 8.5. I loved these characters, like, and they had unique voices. I rooted for them. I gave plot an 8. I gave writing an 8.5. No complaints from me. I gave setting an 8. I really enjoyed it. And I gave my enjoyment an 8, which comes out an 8.17, which puts it as an 8 for SPFBO, and for my actual star rating, it is a 4-star. I had a really fun time with this one, and I'm excited to have more people read it. I'm honestly vibing so much with SPFBO right now. That feels good. But I left my 2 chunky boys for last. So I have Oathsworn Legacy and Blood of the Stars left. Not sure which one I'm doing first, but you'll see in the next clip. Next on the docket is Blood of the Stars. And going into this one, it's probably my most anticipated book from my branch. It is one that I think I will probably like. The thing is, Melanor Reads, who was one of my reviewers on my team, has the most similar taste to me as anyone I know. So chances are whatever she picks as her semifinalist, I will like. Now this doesn't mean she'll automatically win, because last year I picked Deb's semifinalist, but it means that I'm always excited for this one. Not that I'm not excited for the other ones, but I just know like this will align quite similarly with what I like, because Mel and me, we're book 2 besties for a reason. I do own this one physically, and I'm 130 pages in, 20%. This is a chunky boy. I'm listening to the audiobook and I'm liking the audiobook. I don't have a lot of thoughts, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like although 20% feels like a lot into a book, in this book we're still in the setup. I'm still awaiting for things to happen. I wish there was a little bit more explanation. I'm feeling slightly confused a little bit, but I think the author's intentionally making me confused. Not sure it's working for me as a reader, but I'm still intrigued by what's like going on in the overall story. There's something about blood magic in this. We're following 2 characters, and the one character has been kept a prisoner essentially by these people who are siphoning off her blood to use in blood magic. When she's finally rescued, she really has no memories. There is an amnesia trope, which is not my favorite trope. She has no memories, but she's rescued by her family essentially, and told that what they've been doing is bad and they can help her control her magic. We're learning little bits about the magic system as we go. I do think it's intriguing. I know there's also something about bonding, and some people bond out of like love, and when they fall in love they end up blood bonding and it can strengthen their magic. But a lot of families use this as a strengthening tool because it does strengthen your magic when you bond with someone if you like love them, but a bond can also make you kind of fall in love with them if it's like willingly chosen to go into the bond. So they do like arranged marriages, arranged bonds, and I'm intrigued to learn what's happening with there. Essentially in our other POV, there's this prince who is looking for someone that he lost when he was younger that he knows is out there. He's the only one who believes so, and he is going on a quest to find her, but he's also bonded to someone else in an arranged marriage, but he's kind of refusing that bond. And I'm intrigued by both of those things, but I don't really know what's happening in this book.
I'm just like along for the ride and enjoying it. I do kind of wish the characters went a little bit deeper at this moment in time, but overall, like, I'm intrigued. I finished Blood of the Stars, and I should have checked in with you halfway through. Like, I'm so sorry that I didn't. I just at halfway was feeling kind of bored. I had no thoughts to give you. I didn't feel like the story was engaging in me. I think it took to about 60% for me to start like enjoying this really and having thoughts about it, because at 60% there was like a turning point in the story where it became faster and there was action. Truly, I think a big turning point was when the two characters, like the two POVs we mainly get, connected and came together. Until then, I felt like their stories dragged individually, and I think they really shined in their moments together. At the end of the day, I think that first half really is what was the downfall of this book to me, because I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I think that was because I just wasn't invested in the characters, because I found the first half to be very, very slow and monotonous. That's my own personal preference. I'm not super big into like traveling stories. Like, watching people travel just like doesn't do it for me. I was intrigued by the magic, and I think the magic is like the strong suit of this story. The world building was very epic in scale. There was two sides of the battle. There was like the humans and some other things. People who believed in the stars, people who believed in the suns. There was the blood magic that was like tainting the world. There was the stars, like the gods, and how that came to play and things like that. But also at times I felt like I didn't understand all of that enough, and I was confused as motives because I didn't understand the background of it, the religion, the culture. Like, I wanted a little bit more into that. I mean, like, there's hatred between our two characters' parents essentially, and like, why? Like, I wanted to understand that hatred a little bit more, because then it would make them being friends that more impactful moment for me. But I did like the idea behind everything, the magic, the world building, all of that I thought was like really well done. I think the characters were my struggle point, and the pacing, because the first half like wasn't it for me. I could see how this story would be for people. I have a lot of friends that have read this already. A lot of people I know were reading it and excited after Mel read it, and a lot of them gave it 4 stars. They really, really enjoyed this. I think that this is a story that could work for a lot of people. It's an adventure story. It's a coming of age story. We're finding ourselves. We're finding our spot in society. We're making a found family, and I think some of that aspect was good. I liked, there was like this, I don't know, I pictured them as coyotes in my head with human faces, which is probably so wrong, but these creatures that lived on like smaller cycles than humans, they like died and were reborn and forgot everything. And the moments with that creature were some of my favorites. I think that was some of the best character work in this story. But then there were side characters that I was like, I don't even know who you are. I don't know your motivation. I don't know why we're trusting you, and like things like that pulled me out of the story. I don't know, I could just see, because the ending of this, the last 40% like revved the engine up and like took us on a journey that I liked. I liked the great epic battle. I liked how we saw the magic being used, the bonds, all of that at the end felt like a really, really good story for me, and I really enjoyed that. So for me, I think the pacing just struggled because I couldn't get behind the characters in the first 50%. So even though I liked the ending, it took away from my love of the overall book, if that makes sense. I still enjoyed this. I can't say I didn't. Like, it was an easy read. I read it really quickly. I liked the audiobook. Like, I still enjoyed this. I still would recommend it, but it wasn't like an absolute favorite of mine. For our rankings, I gave character 6.5. I gave plot 6.5. It's the pacing that got that. Can't lie. Writing got an 8. Setting got an 8. And enjoyment did get a 6.5, which gives us a score of 7 for SPFBO. And for my like actual star rating, it is a 3. So this one will not be my finalist moving forward, which is funny because it is the one I expected to move forward, and out of so far, it's been the lowest scored. As I said, I still liked it. I still recommend it, but it didn't absolutely work for me, and I thought it was going to be like my Master of the Void this year. I thought I was going to love it, so I'm a little let down by that. I'm disappointed that I didn't love it as much as a lot of other people I know have been loving it, but it also had some anti-buzzwords for me. Traveling, healing magic, visions, things I dislike a lot. So if you like them, it definitely leans a little bit more classic YA coming of age story in my opinion. On to the next book. I'm 50 pages into the Oathsworn Legacy, so I'm not far in, but I wanted to give an update really quickly because this is also a big boy. I think it's like 600 pages. I'm intrigued. At first I was struggling a little tiny bit with the writing style just because it's like a story being told. The first thing we see is someone saying like, I'm writing down a story from someone else, and so it's very like third person omniscient. I
I definitely prefer my POVs to come from a select character. I like to feel their emotions. It helps me connect to a character more. So I was struggling a little bit just because within the chapters we were seeing emotions from like everyone and just like a wider range of what was happening, more of a like look down upon what's happening, not like in the moment what's happening. So yeah, that's just like my preferred style, but overall I like have been learning to like it more as the story goes on. This is kind of told in an interesting way. It's like chapters that are short stories almost, and each story is somewhat connected but feels like a different point that's important to our two characters' lives that's leading them to an end goal or something. And they seem to be getting longer as we go, which I also thought was a very interesting narrative style. I'm liking the short story idea. It's making me like want to continue reading. There is a lot of creatures and stuff. I think I'm only 50 pages in, but I would say what's happening is we're following our two characters who, when they were younger, something murdered their family, and they've kind of said since then that they were going to destroy monsters, and we're following them as their bounty hunter thingies, I guess, mercenaries for hire that get hired for a job, and then they go do something and like they kill a bunch of things to get whatever they need to get, or like they sneak into a house, things like that. In some aspects, this reminded me of Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. Actually, the writing kind of reminds me of Michael J. Sullivan. I actually DNF'd both books I've tried by that author, but I think that I'm liking this writing style a lot more than that, and I'm really liking the concept. There is the humor that I think Michael J. Sullivan has specifically in Theft of Swords, with these two brothers that are killing things, but then they're like kind of joking as they do it, and they're like, I'm the best at what I do, but like I think there's gonna be a lot of heart in the story still, with like a little bit of comedic relief, and I'm actually really excited to continue. I am 60% into the Oathsworn Legacy, and I am so vibing with this book. I was not expecting this. I have been really carried throughout the story. I feel like it's easing me into the story. The world building is just slowly getting more complicated, and it feels so much richer as the story goes on, but it feels like a very natural progression. I'm starting to really feel for the characters. Do I think I could feel for them more if it was like a regular narrative? Yes, but I understand that like that's not this type of storytelling, and like although not my preference, I think the author is doing a really good job of that within this type of storytelling. I think that some of the side characters I definitely could feel a little bit more, but it feels like a traveling story in some aspects without the boring traveling part. We're going and we're getting the gang. We're watching each short story of these two building their school, building their companions, building their friend group to fight this nasty war at the end of the days, and like they're building their team, but it doesn't feel like we're traveling from one place to build the team, because since it's done in short story form, we can like jump around, and I'm really enjoying this. It feels expansive, but it also feels like constrained to them and their friend group and like the humor in them and like who they are. I was not expecting to like this as much as I am, but like I'm having a really good time. It is a long story. It is 650 pages. It probably could have been a little bit of a tighter story, but at the end of the day, I'm really enjoying it. It's taking me a little bit longer to read, but I'm having a good time, and I think that's truly all that matters at some point. I finished the Oathsworn Legacy, and I've had to sit on my thoughts because otherwise I knew I was just gonna come here and ramble. I loved this story. Actually, I cried in this story multiple times. This story hit me so much in the feels. I feel like there's a lot of heart put into this story. I feel like things were so relatable. I mean, siblings is such a buzzword for me in a story. Have a story about family, about siblings, about their connection, and I can relate so hard. I love my sister with my whole heart. I am the younger sibling. I related to the struggles these siblings were going through. Being the younger sibling, being the older sibling, the protectiveness of an older sibling, and the annoyingness of a younger sibling. I thought they got the sibling story in this down so packed, and it hit me in my feels, even though like I'm two sisters, not two brothers. It was so well done in my opinion, and the side characters I also ended up really truly caring about, even with the struggle of the narrative style that I talked about earlier being different than what I typically like, being a storyteller, so you don't get to connect to the characters as much. In the end, my feels were pulled. The strings of all these characters were connected to my soul. Like I cared about every single character, even ones where I only saw them for like one scene, because the characters cared about each other. There was soul in the writing, and like the way they talked about someone made me care about them. There was a found family aspect that I have not seen done, I think, since Six of Crows in this story, where like I really fully felt like they were a family. I think the character work in this was astounding, and the plot, I do think that pacing is probably my biggest complaint with this story. I think that since it's told in short story format, and it was meant to be in short story format, like there's an author note at the end talking about how it was originally just one short story. It was never the story that we got. It was not supposed to be this journey that we went on. So freaking happy we got this journey. That hindered it in some ways, although also made it such a brilliant story and very unique in my opinion, because we'd have like 3 shorter short stories and then 2 long short stories, and I wish it had been more like evenly paced, especially at the end. We have 2 very, very dense, very long short stories, and for me, my personal preference would be, because those stories are happening chronologically at the same time, I would have liked to see like paragraphs back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the 2 spots, but because of how it was done in short story format, I understood it had to be done this way, but I do think that hindered the pacing a little bit. But other than that, the story is so well plotted. Everything matters, whether it's to make you feel for a character, to like understand that character, that definition more, or because it's something the plot is going to come back to you at a certain point. There are stories at the beginning where like all the stories flowed together in my opinion. I always saw that they were leading up to something, but I didn't expect stories to come back and matter the way they did and have like important significance, or to pull on my heartstrings later on in the story being like, oh, that's what that was. And it really did that. Like, this was so well plotted. Like, to me, it worked so well. I don't know what to tell you. I really loved this one. I'm trying so hard to not let myself just gush and ramble. I know what some people could complain about, and I know it might not work for everyone. I completely get that, but it 100% worked for me, where at times this switches from third person to first person. Sometimes the storyteller is just telling other people's stories, so it's third person, and sometimes he's telling his own memories, and so that's first person. And I think that switch up could really not work for some people, but for me, it honestly carried this story. I felt like the tone of this story was so well written, because I felt this character when he was in first person, he had such a voice, and when he switched to his third person telling of other people's stories, he still continued to have the voice of the storyteller, but he also inhabited who he was telling the story from. And I also think another thing that people could complain about is that there is a lot of tell not show in this, and normally I think I would complain about that. However, for me and this type of story, being as it is someone telling the story and it's telling the story of other people that he has just been told, it worked, because I would not believe it if the story went into like intense detail about the color of the grass, the color of the sky. Like, if you were showing me everything that happened, I just feel like that's not believable in the telling of a story. But I can see why that wouldn't work for people, but for me it like really worked. I didn't complain about it because I was like, oh, we're telling a story, like of course they didn't know this or this and they were just like skimming over this part. But I understand why that would really not work for some people, but I feel like it was a stylistic choice and that I was on board with that stylistic choice. And again, the world building, I loved this world. Like, what? Normally I think I would sit here and complain that this author was doing too much. It's something I complain about a lot. I always want to like hold an author and tell them to their face, like, you can write another book. You don't have to do it all in one book. And this book does it all. But in my experience, I was always so excited to see what monster they were gonna go slay, what magic they were gonna stumble upon, what creature was gonna be misconstrued in the environment and was actually going to be on their side and wasn't actually bad. And I loved it. I was always kept on the edge of my seat being like excited for the next big magical thing, and I think it made sense. The world was so rich. It was one of those like classic fantasies with orcs and goblins and elves and witches and warlocks and mermaids and dragons and everything, and it just all fit, and I never felt like I was overloaded with information, and I all felt like I only learned things when I needed to know them, and it didn't just feel like an author trying to like spit out everything that they've ever wanted to write. I feel like it really fit in this world that they've written. I know Mel in her review compares it to The Witcher. I've never read The Witcher, but I have watched some of the show, and I think that, yes, I agree with that. And maybe I should read The Witcher after this, because I'm telling you that I loved this. I'm going to be thinking about this for I don't know how long. I am shocked. But like the emotional connection I feel to this story right now, chef's kiss, amazing. Like, it is so well done. I am hoping I get another book in this world following like new people or something. Like, that would be epic. I actually like loved what we got here. The like comedy in it, the small moments of characters. I do think that the plot was resolved a little bit quick at the end, but at the end of the day, this was a character story in my opinion. If you don't love characters, if you don't fall in love with the characters, you're probably not going to like it as much as I did. But it was about their moments. Specifically with the final short story, you really understand that this was about their journey and what they've always wanted. And like, oh, my heart. Like this book had soul. This had heart for me. It was written with so much like love. Like I loved this. Let's just get into my official rankings. So for characters, I gave them a 9. For plot, I gave it an 8.5. For writing, I gave it a 9. For setting, I gave it a 10. No complaints from me here. And my enjoyment was a 9, which puts us at a 9.08, which is a 9 for the official scoring for SPFBO and a 5-star for my own personal rating. And I think that this clearly means that this is my finalist because this was the last book I had to read. A 9 is a hefty score to be giving a finalist. I hope more people love this the way I did. I connected to this story so much. I need more people to read it. I want more people to understand this journey that I went on and this world I experienced. I'm so excited to be pushing this off to be my finalist for SPFBO 10 and see where it places with all the other judges. I really hope it lands with all them. But I am gonna give a senlin safety net because I loved all of my books. They were all really enjoyable in my opinion. I think that they all deserved a spot. Like I would have been happy pushing any of them through. I am gonna push A Rose Among Thorns as a senlin safety net. This is a very different vibe from the Oathsworn Legacy, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. It's short and I hope that someone else enjoys it just as much as I did and could possibly pass it up as a finalist because this would have been my finalist if I hadn't loved Oathsworn so freaking much. I was like going into this story thought that that was 100% what I was pushing through. Oathsworn just like hit me in my feels so hard. Like it's so good. So shout out to Grace who gave me Oathsworn Legacy as her semi-finalist pick and making me read it because I loved it. If you would like to hear her review, here's her video on the screen for you to go check out if you need another person to scream about it and tell you to read it. If you just want to leave an emoji down below, leave me a shield emoji and have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.